Ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. It's Wednesday, and it's March 5th, and I feel like there's something we used to do on Wednesdays that we haven't done in a while, but now I think it's like time to do it again. I don't know what it is. Oh, wait, yes, I do.
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizard, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's a wizard show. Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray. Flying through the quad, now brighter every day. Laughter we cry hard, sneaking out at night. Cloaks in the moonlight, everything feels right. That's so wizard.
We are so back. We took a month off. We're refreshed. We're rejuvenated. We're ready for a brand new adventure in the wonderful, amazing, stupid brains of Jeremy Crawford and the Wizards of the Coast kids. And how do we start off our first Wizards of the Coast Wednesday with this masterpiece, quite possibly the single greatest product ever made for 6th edition. It is the Heroes of the Borderland starter set. And oh, just look at that amazing art. Doesn't this just evocate everything about classic Gygaxian Dungeons and Dragons to you? We've got a derpy fighter holding a sword that's way too big for him. Then we've got another derpy cleric, I guess, trying to take the sword away from him or something. I don't know. Then we've got a ranger, I don't know, a vaguely Asian wizard, a derpy looking dragon. There's absolutely no way this is AI art. This is totally painted, despite the fact that the arm and the eyes of the dude. Not sure why dude is trying to stop other dude from hitting the dragon with the way too big sword. But hey, that totally sells me on new D&D. So what can we expect in Heroes of the Borderland, the new starter set? Well, we can expect this nightmare-inducing young lady, Malin. Let me just look at her with that smile on her face. She's all like, I don't want to be here. And we can expect Cornflower, another nightmare-inducing, totally not AI art NPC. Just look at the smile on her face. In fact, look at all these characters here. These are all just like got these nightmare-inducing grins that just make you want to go, blink if you need help. Blink if you need help. And then we've got this he, she, they, I don't know what. I've got tribal tattoos, so I'm supposed to be Norse, I guess, and they're carrying somebody else's gear in a box. And just we get the revised, redone Caves of Chaos, the classic. We get the Wilderness and Beyond. We get, of course, the big seller, Keep of the Borderlands. We'll get to that in a second. And we get a whole bunch of other things. We get characters. We get plate toys. We get maps. We get a chance to go through Keep on the Borderlands again. Remember, this is the first time. This is the first time ever that Wizards of the Coast has given us a reprint of Keep on the Borderlands since it originally came out. Never before in the 50-year history of TSR, Wizards of the Coast, have they reprinted Keep on the Borderlands into now. This safe, homey, healthy, happy, redone version of Keep on the Borderlands. And if your attempt is to convince us that new D&D is safer and more child-friendly and more comfy and cozy and free of all the negativity of D&D before 2024, you probably shouldn't lead with these two nightmare-inducing NPCs because, Maylin is just smiling. She's got that, I don't want to be here. Maylin, Cornflower, blink if you need help. Blink if you need help, and we'll contact the authorities. Here's some more of the art. We've already seen this. Here's some of the example characters' art. We've got this new style with the cards. I wonder where they got the idea to use the cards from and the setup from. By the way, this is the new stat block, because remember they changed the stat block in Monster Manual. So anything going forward after Monster Manual will use the new stat block, thus making the stat block presentation in the Player's Handbook totally pointless. I guess it comes with these cards. I don't know. They're referring to this as the tier tile-based character creation system. The tile-based character creation system. So I guess you just lay these little tiles down, and that says what you can and cannot do. And when you level up, you get to add more tiles. And God, that sounds really familiar. I don't know where you got that idea from, Wizards. It's a totally original idea. It's not like there's another game that's coming out that uses the exact same thing that will probably be better than this game. I mean, say what you want about Daggerheart, but we already know that Daggerheart's going to be better than this disaster. And how blatantly, obviously pathetic is Wizards to see the mechanics that Daggerheart is using and go, let's steal that, because people associate us with cards. And then we can release a Magic the Gathering set that directly affects the tile-based character creation system. See, I know how they're thinking. Especially since, you know, the whole Magic the Gathering thing. So what else do we get? Do we have any actual information? Well, there's a map. I mean, as maps goes, it's not bad. There's our kidnapped victim, Mylin. But don't worry, because the images and content are not final. So we have enough time for them to go, oh, wait, you know, nobody likes this. Let's change this. There's also a video about Heroes of the Borderland, but, you know, it features Crawford. We do have some more information on it from our friends over at EWAN World. So here's some more examples of the art. There's a purple-haired something missing the rear half of his head. You'll notice that there's only half of this individual's head. There's this head. Where's the rest of your head? And then we've got I guess an old woman maybe, and they're arguing with a dragonborn, and behind them a beholder is like, shut up. Do we have any more examples of the art in this article? No, they're keeping the art very, very close to their chest. Because they know we're going to complain about the art. So we don't have a lot of art, but what art we do have, pretty much what we expected, kind of disturbing, kind of cutesy, this sort of washed out watercolor, totally not AI generated new style that's supposed to make you think that, you know, Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons 2025 is safe, it's homey, it's comfy, it's cozy. You don't really have to do anything. Sure, you know, the adventure, I guess, is built weekly around Keep of the Borderlands, but I can't imagine what Caves of Chaos, Keep of the Borderlands, and the Wilderness of High Fantasy in 2025 would look like compared to the classics of the three, with the whole nothing scary, always safe, you just level up for the hell of it, and it's raining magic items style of D&D, which if that is your, you know, bag, I'm not gonna denounce you and say you're a horrible person. If this is the style of Dungeons and Dragons you want to play, that's fine. I'm sure there's an audience for this cottage core Genie D Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not the obviously not the target audience, but that's okay. That's fine, because I have my D&D. I have my Gygaxian D&D. I have my 3rd edition when, you know, Wizards of the Coast was at least palatable D&D. I don't need 6th edition. Of course, based upon the numbers, it doesn't look like anybody needs 6th edition. Segue, but just because I am a generous and all-knowing OGGM, if you are one of the few people who have been playing the game for a while and you don't have a copy of what many consider to be the greatest Dungeons and Dragons adventure of all time, Keep in the Borderlands, let me remind you that instead of giving Wizards $66, you can go over to drive-thru and get it for $5 PDF or $13 if you want the softcore standard POD, or $14 if you want both the PDF and the standard core. So you could skip the nightmare that is Heroes of the Borderland, and having the forced virtue signaling of 6th edition shoved down your throat and still play through the classic adventure the way it was meant to be played. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people purchasing this. If this has been, it hasn't been adamantium seller for a while, but it's jumped up recently. I don't know why it jumped up recently. I'm gonna assume it's because people want Keep of the Borderlands, but they don't want that version of Keep of the Borderlands. And they're like, is there a way I can get this classic adventure the way it was meant to be played without giving Wizards $66 and dealing with the virtue signaling and the kidnap victims? Oh, I can just go over to drive-thru and get a PDF for $5. Ah, fuck, that's pocket change. I'll give drive-thru $5. If I didn't already have a copy of Keep of the Borderlands, I'd give them $5, to keep money out of the Wizards of the Coast coffers as we spiral towards the beginning of convention season. Now, if you're wondering about Wizards of the Coast appearances at the initial convention so far, worry no further, because we have the first report from the first convention of convention season. It was Emerald Con, I believe. I'll double check in a sec. But yeah, as we know, part of Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro's new, we're going back to the conventions that we, whatever you want to call it. They're sending reps to conventions. So there was reps at the first convention of the year. Apparently they were way in the back. The setup was very demure. There was no statues, no posters, no cosplay. Very few product available to purchase directly from them, and almost nobody was there, despite the fact that the booth was up for 3 days, and by the third day they were marking down all the books. Nobody was there. There were stacks of Player's Handbook and Monster Manuals just sitting there. Meanwhile, smaller press companies, who had lines for people wanting to talk to them, obviously Kelsey and Shadowdark, but some of the other companies, that had booths there and were doing talks about their game. But nobody wanted to talk to Wizards. Weird. But I'm sure Wizards is okay. I mean, I know there's a lot of videos of people posting, worrying about that Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is done. I don't know why they would say that Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is done. Why Professor Dungeon Master, a couple others, have been posting videos about the fate of the future of the product line, the inevitable digitization of the product line, the discontinuation of the product line as we recognize it and have recognized it for the past 50 years. Might have something to do with this. Not sure, maybe. Or it might have to do with the fact that with the Sigil VTT going live and already having tons of things wrong with it, that Wizards of the Coast is doing exactly what they said they were going to do, and they have been saying that they were going to do since 2020. And literally how in the catalog it says Dungeons & Dragons 6X June 2027. So yeah, guys, we know Wizards of the Coast's life is limited. When they announced the Player's Handbook, they told us they only had 5 years. Wizards of the Coast is living on a 5-year timeline. Everything they have planned for 6th edition, they're doing within the next 5 years, from the release of 2024 Player's Handbook to wherever we are 5 years from now. Well, 2025, 5 years from now, would be 2030, which many people have predicted to be the last year we would see Dungeons & Dragons as we recognize it. It's not to say you can't still get D&D stuff. And it's not to say that the other product isn't still out there. And it's not to say that there isn't a plethora of companies, I love that word, plethora, that are going to be making D20 Gygaxian retro clones, or even retro cloning 5e. I've already seen announcements for 5e retro clones because of the way the new rules for the 5e common core system is, that, there's already at least two, not counting, DC 20 and Draw Steel and Advanced 5e, but no, actual 5th edition 2014 retro clones that are just shaved off anything connected to Wizards and changed a few names. And they're already out there. And I know Basic Experts working on one. So yeah. So where does all this come from? Let's tie this up because, I want to keep this under a half an hour. Well, it probably comes from the Hasbro fourth quarter 2024 numbers that dropped on the tail end of February. Now, I'm not going to go into all the hullabaloo of reading everything because that's boring and nobody really cares about numbers unless I show you pictures of kittens. But let's just get to the meat and bones. The meat and bones, if you're wondering how well or how poorly Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro did as the year comes to the end, revenue declined 17%. They're still blaming the sale of E1 for the 17% decline. And strangely enough, the biggest decline was Wizards. Despite having the fastest selling Dungeons & Dragons product in history with the new Player's Handbook, Wizards of the Coast numbers are down. Magic the Gathering numbers are down. Dungeons & Dragons numbers are down 7% from where they were this time last year. Consumer products down 12%. Entertainment down 88%. The only part of Wizards that is making money is digital. Even Magic the Gathering is down. Operating profit was $690 million. Operating margin of 16.7%, closing at 149 million. I can't read these numbers. Blah 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 blah. This is a profit loss. Numbers. Net earnings, stock. How much money did the CEO give to himself? How much money did the shareholders get? Shareholders' debt is still $83 million. $83 million. We are still owed of the $1 billion that they lost. Hasbro still owes shareholders like myself $83 million. And that's not counting the $9 million that they're owed by Alliance. Makes you wonder where they're going to ship the products if they don't have access to Diamond and Alliance. Meanwhile, if you check in with the retailers and the subsellers and how well the product's moving across the board, it's not. We literally have pictures in the wild of people from game stores looking at tables with stacks of the new Player's Handbook and stacks of the new DM's Guide and stacks of the new Monster Manual. They're already showing up in Ollie's and marked down in the bins at Barnes & Noble. And if you can even find them in Target, they're already marked down. Now, some would say, oh, the doom and gloom of Wizards, this is the end. Others would say this is exactly what they said they were going to do. So it shouldn't be a little surprise. I mean, we knew that they'd lied to shareholders. We knew that they'd lied to OSHA and the Better Business Bureau. They made claims about product that they didn't have. They lied about the whole fastest selling product. They've lied about shipping. They're being sued. They're under investigation yet again from, the trade and the FCC for stuff like that, for claiming, product was sent that was never sent, claiming that they fulfilled orders that were never fulfilled. There's warehouses that were just filled with product that was supposedly already at the distributor. And they were like, we forgot about that warehouse. Wasn't it Chris's day to check? He was sick. Yeah. So 2024 internally was not great for Wizards / Hasbro. But thankfully, let's end things up here on a high note. If you were worried about the true heart of Hasbro, not Dungeons and Dragons, obviously, not Power Rangers, because they screwed the pooch on that, which I can't believe Netflix would willingly get in bed with them again after Hasbro screwed them over with Power Rangers and Transformers. But now they're like doing the Dungeons and Dragons thing on Netflix. What? unless Netflix has a completely different way of approaching this business deal and some type of ironclad, if you fuck us over, we still get paid contract with them, why would they get in bed with Hasbro again after being fucked over for Power Rangers? I don't understand that, but obviously Netflix is smarter than I am. So they probably have some deal. They're looking at how Hasbro screwed them over with the Power Rangers, and they're like, okay, yeah, all right. I mean, we want this D&D show because it's guaranteed money, at least on the beginning. No matter how bad it is, the first episode will still, you know, break bank, just like the first episode of Raw on Netflix, even though Raw on Netflix sucks. So yeah, it should be interesting. I'm sure Netflix is smart enough to have a contract to protect themselves better so that when Dungeons and Dragons Netflix is royally screwed and they treat it the same way they treated Power Ranger Netflix will has a way to come out at least going, hey, we still got our money. Look at the virals. Maybe we can get Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to show up and, you know, heal John Cena to help the D&D cartoon sale. But again, where was I? Oh yeah, I was wrapping this up. Don't worry. If you're like me and you were worried about the true heart of Hasbro was still being successful, despite everything, despite the utterly incompetent way they are managing Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering, it is safe to say that at the core of Hasbro, their most profitable product is still Peppa and Furby. And that's just so wizard!
Laughing aloud now, magic in the air. Wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find. Spells and enchantments, trouble on our minds.